Live from north of the virtual border from the Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve for the Ignite Racing League JP Alfonso GT3 League, presented, of course, always by JP Alfonso's Tattoo Studios. Welcome to Maconi Entertainment's broadcast. My name is Ian Fisher, and with me into the booth tonight is Trevor McClure. And Trevor, we find ourselves at the Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve here. This is a very interesting track here, kind of uncommon. I would compare it almost to, let's say, a Barcelona or something like that. But these drivers are going to have their handful with this relatively flat circuit here north of the border here this evening.
That's right. This 4.4 kilometer circuit, 2.7 miles for those of you south of the border, is actually most of the year a public park. Track is used for walking, cycling, everything else, and it's otherwise very quiet except for the weekends where the engines roar for Formula One. The circuit obviously is named after the standout and phenomenal Formula One Ferrari driver Gilles-Villeneuve, father of Jacques Villeneuve, Formula One world champion and Indy 500 winner himself. So this is definitely a unique circuit because it's almost like part road course, part permanent circuit that was built on a man-made island that was made for the World Expo held in Montreal in the 1960s.
Yeah, and I said it was very similar to a Barcelona. I'm actually might change my comparison here. I would say after we've learned the facts about the man-made island and everything like that, I would say it probably races more similar to maybe a smoother Belle Isle. You know, you don't have as much of the imperfections in the pavement and the bumpy roads that Michigan love to hand to us here at all seasons. I would know very well from my experience here with all Michigan roads. But of course, this circuit opened in 1978. And we kind of mentioned it there. I will say that that turns 13 and 14, that hairpin kind of reminds me of Barcelona. But other than that, a very flat circuit here. Obviously, we mentioned it was on the man-made island there. You see that here. So a very unique racing circuit, I will say. You mentioned only now used for Formula One, but we're going to go racing here in the Ignite GT3 Racing League. And right now, I believe we do have qualifying wrapping up here, about 2 minutes and 50 seconds left in qualifying, or perhaps a practice session here for these drivers. I do think it's qualifying, though, running open qualifying. But I want to talk a little bit about the race strategy here. I do know you have a little bit of real life experience here, Trevor, more on the spotting side, maybe not as much on the race strategy side. Correct me if I'm wrong. But a very unique thing about this league, obviously, you have those 2 mandatory pit stops. In one of those stops, you have to take tires. So in your race strategy career, your spotting career, have you ever had a situation where a pit stop was mandatory, and how are these drivers going to adjust for that this evening?
Well, yeah, I do more of the strategy nowadays than I do the spotting. So I've all but hung up the binoculars for the most part, and I spend a lot of my time parked on the timing box. But yeah, I mean, pit stops are critical, especially in IMSA. The endurance racing that I do strategy for, pit stops are absolutely critical, and when can make or break the race. And I've had numerous occasions where doing that has won us a race or scored us a podium that we otherwise shouldn't have gotten on raw pace alone. I do like the way the series is laid out. It's a pretty quick race, but it's a 45-minute to an hour race, so it's nice and fast paced. The 2 stops really throws a wrench in the works. It gives the guys a lot of different options. There's different ways for everything to play out. And it'll be interesting to see what these guys do. I mean, last race at Sebring, we saw 20 minutes, 20 minutes, and 20 minutes. Basically, everybody on strategy broke the race up into 3 segments. And, that's one way to do it. I think it'll be interesting to see if anybody deviates from that, especially if they don't maybe have the pace of the usual suspects up front, the Juan Salazar's, JP Alfonso, Jose Puig. They've got to change something up, because if you don't have the pace and you do the same thing the leaders do, you've determined your fate. You're going to finish behind them. So it'll be interesting to see here. I think some guys can play and extend some fuel windows. Maybe decide to take tires later than the second stop rather than the first. So the book is open here on the options these guys have, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Interesting to see how it plays out, indeed. And we do have a little bit of time here, possibly First, some interviews with our top three finishers from last week, of course, being Jose Puig, Phil Forster, JP Alfonso. And while we give them a second to finish up qualifying and mentioning JP Alfonso, just want to shout him out. He's the title sponsor here of our GT3 series. He's got a tattoo shop in Norcross, Georgia. You can check him out at www.jpalfonsostudios.com. You can see all their recent work. And then even if you're in the area, get yourself an appointment there and get booking information. Also want to shout out Hot Rod Setups and Tam Liveries, two of the partners here coming on board for our GT3 series here, the Ignite Racing GT3 League. And let me ask you this, Trevor, do you have any tattoos of your own?
I do not. I know
Yeah,
plenty of people that do, and it's not my deal, but JP Alfonso's work is pretty awesome, and what they do in the studio is pretty sweet. If I had to get one, I think I'd march my way down to Georgia and get it.
Yeah, I've actually checked it out as well, just because curiosity has piqued my interest since I say the web address every weekend. There's a lot of cool stuff out there, a lot of different art styles. I'm not going to act like I know about tattoos or anything like that, but he does a variety of styles as well. So something for whatever you're looking for there for your tattoo needs. Again, that's in Norcross, Georgia, jpalfonsostudios.com. If you want to check them out here, qualifying all but wrapped out here at the virtual Circuit del Gilles-Villeneuve. And you can see there right now a new name at the top of your leaderboard. Scheelman there, the 10 car with a 134.017 right now. He's your pole sitter, and we'll get into the rest of your grid here in just a couple of minutes, Trevor. But a relative newcomer coming up here and striking the pole position. I know maybe just a couple of races for you here in the Ignite GT3 series, just to fill you in here. We're used to seeing Alfonso obviously be wanting the front runners there. Other names to look out for are obviously going to be Royce Forster, Puig as well, always one of those fast drivers as well. But Scheelman here up at the top of the board so far.
Yeah, it's good to see a different name up there. He'll make it a four-way battle for the front, as we've really seen the show has been between Salazar, Alfonso, and Puig. And we've had a couple of dark horses steal a podium here. Mark Royce, of course, 2 races ago, snagged 3rd place on really consistent drive, and that's going to be the big thing here. The top 4 have the pace, and I think they're going to kind of leave the rest of the field here, but it's really like a street circuit, so there's no runoff right into concrete walls. It's very easy to have a day done in one corner, and first, the Senna S's, the first turns, 1, 2, 3 area, 4 and 5, the hairpin, and of course the Wall of Champions, the final corner, are all of the hot spots for contact. And with a near 20 car field here, there's a lot of metal and carbon that can get mangled on this opening lap and open the door for somebody who maybe doesn't have the pace to take home some hardware tonight.
Yeah, and we see that so far with Scheelman at the top of our board here. Obviously, we mentioned already the strategy and everything that'll go into this race as we go through this evening. And while we've got a bit of a second here, we can check out our race analysis. Of course, we mentioned the 2 pit stops already. These cars do have a 40% fuel load, so fuel stops will be a part of your strategy, as well as tire stops as well. You see there the 2 mandatory stops and 1 mandatory tire change in this race, as we already touched on a little bit. 60 minutes here in your racing action this evening, and just under a minute here before we get ready to grid here for this evening. So what can we expect early on in this race with a little bit of the experience that you have here maybe in the real life, Trevor? What can you expect in the early stages of a race here at Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve, and what can we see, or what can we expect to see, that is, as the race goes on?
I think we're going to see a lot of tears, a lot of contact, a lot of wrecks here these first couple of laps. It's too easy to make a mistake and pay for it dearly here. There's no forgiveness. Track is not super wide. I mean, it's about as narrow as a Formula One circuit can be, and very, very easy to lose a little bit of time and have the guy behind you really want to get through with nowhere to go except a rear bumper. So I suspect we're going to see quite a bit of attrition here these first couple of laps, and then once it settles out, whoever's left in that top 4-5 with Salazar, Alfonso, Forster, Puig, and our newcomer pole sitter Scheelman, I think they're going to walk away, and that's going to be a battle up front with those that are left, and see what happens, because those guys, until circumstances separated them at the previous race at Sebring, they were nose to tail, and even a divorce settlement could separate them. And I think we'll see that here. Just really hard, fast, furious action. And as that lead battle progresses throughout the race, I think that's still going to open the door for some attrition, and possibly some of these guys like Daniel Ott, Mark Royce, have knocked on the door of a podium and even had their hand on one so far this year as we go through the final corner here to the green.
Yeah, you see your top 6 on the grid here before we go green flag racing. Obviously, Shielman will lead the field here as our pole sitter to the green flag. We'll have 60 minutes of racing here from the virtual circuit, Gilles-Villeneuve, and we're green flag racing here now. The field spreads out 2, maybe even 3 wide in places here down into the first couple of corners here, a hard braking zone. Everybody's going to make it through nice and easy. It's not your traditional chicane. You can see it here on our onboard shot, kind of a long sweeping couple of turns here now that work through this complex as well. Shielman able to get out to the early lead. The rest of these cars give chase, and so far so good. Nobody having really any problems. You mentioned how short, or not how short this course is, how narrow this course is. Passing probably going to be a premium here tonight, Trevor.
Absolutely, and there's only a couple of places to get that done. Really into the hairpin, braking at the end of the long straight after the hairpin through the Wall of Champions, and really, if you're brave, you can stuff one down the inside of one and hope you've got the grip to make it stick there through 2. As we got a couple of our front runners too wide to the wall of, or the 9, I believe that is. We have a car off there in the gravel mid-pack. Didn't get a look on who that was. It was John Berry II. Really unfortunate. And we have some more contact in the hairpin now as well. Still going too wide. I mean, everything's so very, very close here. It's going to be interesting how all these things play out.
Is battling for a position early here. One of those drivers is the driver in the 9th position right now, the 333 car of Kerry Cantera as well. Cantera's had a bit of an up and down season, finds himself kind of middle pack here as far as we go in the United GT3 Racing League as we arrive here north of the virtual border. And I know we only got those top 6 cars on our starting grid. We'll be sure to fill you in on the rest of the field as we go here. Of course, always on the top of your Maconi Entertainment timing tower there. You can see all the drivers as they flash by here. Of course, Barry, after that early incident, now finds himself all the way back in the 19th position here. Drivers still jostling position up to the pack. Spielman, Salazar, Forrester, Alfonso, and Push, your top 5 right now. Only a few minutes gone in this race, and really only the single issue we've really seen here to Barry. Does that surprise you at all, Trevor, or can you kind of expect these guys to work themselves into a rhythm this early into a race?
I'm actually quite surprised. As I said, it's a dangerous place here, especially when you're starting 2x2, 20 deep. It's pretty remarkable that we've had as little incident as we've had so far, and not too much change in position here. We see that Forrester got around Alfonso here, but Alfonso was right back on the bumper. It seems like once Alfonso gets that first lap or 2 jitters out and finds his rhythm, he's turns into a weapon. So be interesting to see what he can do here. He's leaving his teammate and good friend Jose Puig behind, which is surprising. Jose was about the class of the field last race at Sebring, so we'll see if his Ferrari can muscle him up to the front and stay out of trouble.
You know, stay out of trouble is definitely what you do, especially early in this race. You take a look on board with our 2nd place driver right now, the 1 Ferrari of Juan Salazar, and he's all over the back bumper there of Shielman, your pole sitter, and this battle has been raging ever since the drop of the green flag here. Only about 4 minutes, 30 seconds into this race as we are right now, and you can kind of see the back and forth twisting, turning nature of this track. You mentioned it, Trevor, almost like a street circuit. You can see that there, no runoff to speak of, a little bit there on the left-hand side. And you were kind of talking a little bit before some action unfolded to the track. Some of the really good passing zones here on the racetrack. You mentioned the hairpin, obviously, is always going to be one of them at any racetrack. But what are some of the other places we can watch for action this evening?
Really, the end of the back straightaway there, going into the complex known as the Wall of Champions. appropriately named for the 1999 Formula One Grand Prix, where that wall swallowed no less than 3 world champions. As we have Alan Bros take a little bit of a spin there. No other contact out of turn 10. But yeah, I think, like we talked about earlier, there's going to be a really high premium on passing zones. Hairpins are obvious. End of the back straight's obvious. And like I said, if you've got a pair on you, you can try into one. The problem with diving into the inside of one is you're going to be on the outside of the Senna S's 2 and 3 on, so you've really got to make that stick and get a car length ahead, not just a nose, to make that work through there.
And I really like that portion of the track, those set of S's that you mentioned there, as you watch a side by side, almost a 3-wide battle here in the turns 13 and 14, coming back to the start finish line. It looks like one driver off there a little bit. I believe that's John Barry, after falling back here, maybe now finds himself a lap down to these cars as well, trying to battle back here from early issues as well. But for a moment was involved in that 3-way battle there and kind of strung those 3 drivers out that are battling in front of him here. One driver you see there going off just a little bit, and you're gonna see that here just from time to time, as now Tyler DiVincenzo is going to try to hang on to this charging pack there. You see the 47 goes around, one driver behind that as well. Pretty sure that was a reaction to the 47 going around in front of 80. That's Kyle Edgar right there. I believe that was his teammate, though, as well, Trevor, that he caused some trouble for as well.
Absolutely, and just one corner later, we had Daniel Ott sideways and in the grass as well from 9th place. That's going to be a kick in the knackers. He's going to end up way down below, but yeah, just to try to follow the action here, John Barry there in that immense battle. Despite his early woes on lap 1, he is fighting for position. He's on the lead lap, currently cycling through in 13th, I believe. And he's got quite a bit of pace on these next few cars in front of him, so he will be one to watch here over the next couple of laps as he battles his way back to the position he originally had before that early spin.
And you saw that aggressive move from Arvin Zandangi there. Hairpin was able to get the good drive in there, Trevor, but you saw it kind of bit him there on the exit of the corner. Tries to make a move on the inside here through 13 and 14 again, but just doesn't have the bite to do it right now. They're still trying to battle back with him, but this is a battle that's been raging on here for about a lap and a half, and these guys really can't seem to find really an advantage on each other right now. I will say the different car choices that we have here tonight, Trevor, is there any one that stands out to you as a definite advantage here, or do you think they're pretty well matched?
Well, I mean, it really looks like a cross between Ferrari Challenge and Porsche Cup here. Is most of the competitors are either in the classic German machinery or the prancing horse. I think one or two have deviated from that. I think we've got an Audi and a Lamborghini in there as well, of Daniel Ott and Kerry Cantera. But, you know, I'm not really seeing a glaring difference here. I mean, the Porsche is going to be the better car, the really tight, twisty stuff. The Ferrari's advantage obviously comes in the very long back straightaway, but there's really only one place for that horse to stretch its legs. So it's not like Sebring where there's multiple lengthy straightaways, and it can kind of get away from that Porsche. Porsche is a good car here, but again, there's a Ferrari in the lead. There's a Ferrari in 5th place. There's a bunch of Ferraris still running competitive time. So I don't technically see a big difference or necessarily a quote-unquote car to have. It's just everybody's very much made it clear that in the JP Alfonso Studios series, you're either in a Porsche, a Ferrari, or you're in the back.
I'm hearing now, Trevor, that we had one driver go off, and I think we have a replay here. Let's look and see. I believe this was Juan Salazar, and we'll see what happens here to the one car. You talked me through a little bit there, Trevor. I think that was just maybe a little bit too hard on the brakes and maybe not the right brake bias for him at that point in time.
Yeah, possibly. It could have been a combination of that. Maybe just too late on the trail brake or too late on the initial brake and having to slow down the car well past the turn-in. And, of course, there it's a really good track because, again, you know, 360 days out of the year, it's a public park. So it's not like these permanent race circuits we have that are rubbered in week and week out. to get the proper wear on them. So yeah, it's real easy to just get in a little too deep, carry the brake a little too much, have a little too much wheel in it, and around she goes.
I will say for all these drivers, a lot of respect for everybody in the Ignite GT3 Racing League presented by JP Alfonso Studios. You saw there that Salazar had a little bit of a problem, and you see it all the time on iRacing drivers trying to gas it out, get back onto the track, and cause problems for other drivers. And I've seen multiple incidents so far this year where drivers have been smart. They let the field go by and then they rejoin the racing action and try to work it back from there. And I do think you have the luxury here in the format as well, Trevor. If you make a mistake early, you actually can kind of get it back with the pit stops, as we see a battle developing here between two drivers. That's, I believe, trying to get a look at here, that's the 62. And then Daniel Ott trying to chase down, I believe,
It's
I'm not
Connor
entirely sure.
Webb.
I think it's Connor Webb. Yeah, thank you very much, Trevor, right there. Chasing down Connor Webb here. That's for 14th position. So all through this field, you might be back in the pack, but still good racing action all over the track right now, Trevor.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of these cars are cars that have pace and started in the higher end of the pack and had spins. You know, Daniel Ott, one of them, 2 laps ago, he made a spin here at this same corner as he chases Connor Webb through. And now he finds himself trying to claw back. Not much different than John Barry, and even our early front runner Juan Salazar, who finds himself in P8. So there's the action, I think, is going to keep at an up tempo. These guys that have the pace, that are trying to fight to the guys that don't, are going to keep the show pretty interesting, because again, even if you have significantly superior pace here, it's not easy to get around a guy.
No, not easy at all. We've touched on that multiple points throughout the broadcast. One driver that is having no issues so far since the drop of the green flag, and now just over 10 minutes into this race is Shieldman there in the 10 car. He's leading this race right now, and with Giancarlo really just doing an excellent job so far from the drop of the green flag. One of the kind of the surprises here to the Ignite GT3 Racing League tonight from the virtual circuit, Gilles-Villeneuve. And so far, since the drop of the hat, has been just the driver to beat there. You can just see from watching the replay, you don't even need the timing tower. You see it right now, the fastest lap of 1:34.3 in this race. And that's 10 minutes into this race. Tire wear, not a huge factor here, Trevor, but especially a driver like Giancarlo can definitely manage the rubber as the race goes on.
Absolutely. I mean, his pace has dropped off about 3/4 of a second, but you see that pretty well all across the board, if not more. It'll be interesting to see here, but as you said, he's managing his tires equal to or better than everyone else behind him, and that's just going to make it that much easier for him to stay out front. And the remarkable bit is he is clear of every other car on track by at least 0.4 of a second. He was clear of Forrester in P2 almost a full second last lap. So he's just in his rhythm, found a groove. And with this being a street circuit, in all intents and purposes, it's just like Monaco, where qualifying is so important. And if you can start in that front row or from pole position, got half the race won. And that's what Schliemann is showing us here. Is he's just out for a Sunday drive, but still on a Monday.
Yeah, we'll go through the field right now before we get into our first round of pit stops. Obviously, you see Shieldman there, your leader right now. But back in the second position, we have Philip Forrester, who's been trying to chase him down now since the drop of the green flag of this race, and really has had absolutely nothing for Shieldman so far. And he's being chased now by JP Alfonso, a kind of a mainstay here in the podium positions that we've had so far in the Ignite GT3 Racing Series. And he should. He's the title sponsor. Go check out jpalfonsostudios.com and check out his work. You can even book yourself an appointment at his tattoo studio. Back from there in the fourth position, we have Jose Puch. And again, one of those drivers we've seen all season be one of the more dominant drivers, but right now is really having to battle from the fourth position. We mentioned how hard passing is all night long. He's going to be looking forward definitely to those first round of pit stops whenever he can get to them. And we've seen Puch before play some interesting strategy and track position to get himself up to the lead, maybe when he didn't have the pace or maybe didn't have the track position. So interested to see what Pooch will do here coming to the first pit stop as well. Back from there, the 20 car, Nick Sorensen in the Porsche, having a really good run so far. A solid top 5 run, 13 seconds back from your leader, but not too many complaints there from Sorensen. Back from there, we have the 333 machine of Kerry Cantera, one of those drivers that always hangs out around this position of the racetrack, about I would say 4th back onto about your 8th position. Going back from there, moving back one more position, as Kerry Cantera kind of has a little bit of a connection issues there. Juan Salazar in the 1 machine. We saw the early issues that he had, has worked himself all the way back up to the 7th position. So a good recovery so far by Juan Salazar, but you know he's a driver that expects himself to be higher up in the field. Back from there in 8th, the 279 of Stephen Knight. He's doing an excellent job up here so far. Really a driver that we haven't seen up towards the front of the field so far. So an 8th place position really got to be exciting for him right now. Started 14th, 6 positions from where he started, now up in 8th place in that Mercedes. The driver out of Texas doing an excellent job here so far. Going back one more position, William Pisa, the driver out of New York, started 15th, currently 9th, 6 positions as well to share with the driver he's chasing down from Texas in front of him. And we kind of see a little bit of a trend here, Trevor. Some drivers working themselves back from the back of the pack up to the front here. Obviously, some incidents are going to contribute to that as well, but just good, solid driving and avoiding mistakes from these drivers that have made up this many positions right now. Back in 10th position, Tyler DiVincenzo out of Canada, a hometown race for him, 18th up to 10th, 8 positions so far. I believe that's one of your biggest drivers that have moved up on the racetrack. In the Ferrari right now, he's been battling with another driver that has had a few issues early, but has done a really good job of recovering, even though he's lost 3 positions. John Barry in 11th, started 8th. That's a good recovery from the issues that he had so far. Back from there, we have Arvin Sandanghi in the Hoonigan Porsche machine in the 87 out of California, started 17th, currently 12th. That's 5 positions gained here for him this evening from the virtual circuit, Gilles-Villeneuve. So a good recovery from his earlier starting position. But as we say that right now, Trevor, a little bit of a spin for the 87 machine. Just kind of overcooked it there into the Senna S's, and he'll have to correct now.
Commentator's curse, you got him, man. It was, like you said earlier, that's a tough section of the track to get right. And he didn't have much pressure on him, but it just looked like it was a bit too much brake too late, and around it goes. And of course, with the Porsche having the motor over the rear axle, that thing turns into a pendulum rather quickly once the rear end starts to go around. One driver I really want to keep an eye on is Kerry Cantera, the lead Canadian here. They have been hounding the pair of Jose Puig and Nick Sorensen, and they are the only car that is reasonably close in terms of lap time to our leader, Schliemann. So they're on a mission here, and I think this battle for 4th is going to go 3 ways here shortly.
Yeah, Puig and Sorensen, the 2 drivers battling for 5th right now, but you kind of mentioned it, Cantera has really been doing a lot of work here to try to chase down these 2 drivers. Not quite chasing down our leader. Nobody really had for him right now, but definitely chasing down this battle for the 4th and 5th position. You mentioned it, Trevor. 42 minutes left in this race, so we're starting to get close to that zone where we see drivers start to pit, and they like to split it up into 20-minute intervals. I'm interested to see if anybody will try to stretch that window. I will say there is a lot of strategy involved in these 2-stop races, but everybody's really kind of taken the same strategy. The only real differences we've seen is if you take your tires early or if you take your tires late. I think if you're a driver that's so far in the lead like Schliemann is right now, I think you take those tires early, but what do you think, Trevor?
I mean, really, you've got to look at it from Schliemann's perspective. If he takes tires, where is that going to put him back in the pack? And the answer to that is it's going to put him back in the neighborhood of Daniel Ott to Kyle Edgar, if my estimations are correct. So he's going to end up, he's the first car to stop and takes tires. He'll end up back in the 14th place. have a fair amount of traffic to contend with. And as we said, even if you have significant pace over the car in front of you, it's not the easiest place to pass. So what you do is you find yourself having to run the slower speed of the car in front of you at most of the track and trying to fight getting frustrated that you're not going as fast as you should be. And that can open the door for other cars like JP Alfonso, Philip Forrester to have some miracle laps, stretch a stop, and be able to kind of do the undercut, or overcut rather, by stopping later. So you have to be really careful here. But as you said, Schliemann's it's his race to lose. And I think a lot of the front runners are going to follow or copy whatever he does, which, given the pace difference, from my perspective, is the wrong thing to do, because you gotta change it up. But again, Schliemann can also extend and be the last car to stop on a fuel tank and not incur any traffic at all. So we'll see how these pit stops play out. But just like it is in the real world, there's so many things to consider, and you have a split second to analyze them and make a decision, which is why the position's so hard to do. And so many of these guys are just doing it from the driver's seat as they're going. So their bandwidth to pay attention to strategy and things like that is limited, and not to mention they can't see what everybody else is doing when they're inside the car.
Well, we've talked so much about strategy. This is a battle on the racetrack now. This is Pooch and Sorensen. Now for the third position, and the reason that it's for third position is that Forrester had a little bit of an issue here, and we'll look at what happened right now. You see him trying to get back on the racetrack as well. Looks like a single car spin here from Forrester. I think just catching that grass just a tiny bit, going into the braking zone, 13 and 14 right before the start finish line. What do you think, Trevor?
That's exactly what it was. Apply the brakes when you're on the grass, and the outcome is no surprise. It's unfortunate, but again, it's very easy to do, and it's very inviting, because under the bridge there, just prior to the brake zone, there is full asphalt coverage to the wall, only for the width of the bridge. So it's very easy to try to like eke out as much use of the track as you can, and run out of it and apply the brakes and have your left sides on the grass. We see our first pit stops here. Looks like John Barry, Tyler DiVinzino, and a few others have hit the pit lane.
Yeah, DiVinzino, Barry, two drivers on the pit lane as well. Looks like we have one more driver to pit road here. And yeah, you kind of mentioned it, Trevor, when you touch the grass here, the ski instructor from South Park comes to mind. If you pizza when you're supposed to French fry, you're going to have
a bad time.
Yeah, exactly. And he pizzaed there when he was supposed to French fry. For sure, and that's going to be really unfortunate for him, because he's now going to find himself back around 15th position here as it runs. DiVinzino actually even getting out of pit road in front of him. But this battle continues to rage on here between Pooch and Sorensen here. This is your battle for third position still. And you see back there, you mentioned earlier, Cantera still kind of stalking these guys, waiting for any mistake to happen in front of them. But right now, it's been a good old-fashioned battle here between these two drivers for third.
Absolutely, and we're seeing a lot of cars coming to pit lane, including Jose Puig, Sorensen, and Kerry Cantera. I don't know if I agree with that. If I were Cantera, I would run another lap or two, whatever you got left in the tank, with some clear track, and see if you can claw that track position back here. But as these shake out, I will let you know who took tires and who haven't. The early takers for tires look to be Philip Forrester, John Barry, Tyler DiVinzino, Connor Webb, and maybe a couple of others here. We've got active on the lane and a few people out there. Arvin Sadeghi is apparently still on track, maybe looking to get some of that track position back. Looks like he's the only car on track at the moment, so he'll cycle up to virtual P2 at the moment, as we've got some cars leaving pit lane behind him. But we'll see. He can put down a few laps here and maybe get a position or two back.
Yeah, Giancarlo Monterey Schillman not to pit road yet, so he's still your race leader. And you kind of mentioned it, a few drivers staying out, kind of playing that track position game. And you touched on that a little bit earlier, Trevor, that if you want to do something in this race, if you want to like try to maybe not win this race, but if you at least want to get up there and battle for track position, you got to do something different than everybody else is doing right here, as we see Juan Salazar try to navigate himself around some traffic there. It was a bit of a tight squeeze there for a second. And you mentioned Cantera coming into pit road, but I want to ask here. We saw that battle between Sorensen and Pooch. Sorensen followed Pooch into pit road. If you're that close in a battle with somebody, is that the play there, or do you want to try to stay out and go for the the pit road strategy that way?
I mean, there's two ways to do it, and you know, with the truncated tank size that these guys are working with, it is a bit of a risk. But if you're nose to tail with a car going into pit lane, you can take just a little bit less fuel and leave the pits in front of them. Of course, that might compromise you down the road. But in the case of Kerry Cantera, I would have gone opposite of what those two guys were doing and just run another lap or two in clean air at his maximum pace and try to claw back the difference, because it was only about 6 or 7 tenths. It's not hard to make up 6 or 7 tenths on a very, very fast in lap and a very, very fast out lap. They could have easily cycled through to the lead of that battle for third place, as we see a lot of these shaking out. And our leader actually has pitted. He was just that far ahead of all of the other cars in the back that came a lap later, that he never saw them. So really nice work there. But interestingly enough, the leader did not take tires.
So no tires there for Shillman this time by, so we know he has to take him on his second stop. And you kind of mentioned that there, Trevor, if you did take tires on this stop, you run the risk of putting yourself back in the field in dirty air, and that's going to be definitely detrimental. You mentioned how hard passing is already as well. But one of the drivers that will use their pit strategy to their advantage here, you see it, the 333 machine of Kerry Cantera. They're trying to get reeled in by Salazar, but really doing a great job here. I think the difference for Cantera, he hasn't been the fastest driver on the racetrack, Trevor, but I will say he's been one of the cleanest and most consistent. One of his faster laps was a 134 here, so I'm not entirely sure how that kind of balances out to the rest of the field, but at least running fast enough to be competitive. And the important thing, not keeping the car, I'm sorry, the important thing, keeping the car on the racetrack, not keeping the car on the racetrack. And so that's really just been the important thing right now.
Absolutely, and I think Sorensen's done the same thing. He was mega clean at Sebring, just one of those drivers, doesn't have the outright pace, but didn't make mistakes, and that shows. Sorensen's incident counter is 0 so far in this race, so he's not put a wheel wrong. He finds himself in second at the moment. Interesting thing, and we've talked about who's going to go off strategy, who's going to do X, Y, and Z. JP Alfonso is the lead car who's taken tires, so he sits back in 5th place. The difference between a fuel-only stop and a tire stop that time was about 23 seconds. So as long as JP Alfonso can stick within 23 seconds of all the cars in front of him, which I think he's got that at the moment, aside from our leader Schliemann, that means when he comes for fuel only for the second stop, he'll regain those 20 to 23 seconds by not doing a tire change, and he'll have a free go here. So we'll see how that strategy plays out. But one of the few drivers that took his tires early.
Yeah, JP Alfonso has been a driver that has been up around the top 3 podium positions all season long, really knocking on the door of one of these wins here finally. And you kind of mentioned it, finally set himself up in a position where at least the math is working out for him. Obviously, you still got to drive the car for just over 30 minutes here as we're getting close to the halfway point of our race here from the Routier circuit, Gilles-Villeneuve. But really, you still got to maintain. You still got to keep the lap times up. And I think the most important thing, we mentioned it all night long, Trevor, is you avoid the mistakes here. Got a little bit of a 3-way battle developing here for about, I believe this is the 9th position. Looks like the 62 there is one of the cars involved with other 2 cars here right now. And we've kind of seen this. There's Daniel Ott there in 9th position. This is a battle for about the 7th position. We've seen this all night long, kind of little, almost cliquey groups of cars that kind of form here and do battle for multiple laps, Trevor. Really nobody right now with a definite advantage able to get away, with the exception of our leader.
Absolutely, and in this 3-way battle, the advantage should go to Forrester because he's the only one of the 3 that took tires that stop. So He's going to be real keen to get around Kyle Edgar, try to get as much of a gap between them as they can, um, because those other two guys are going to have to stop and have a longer stop for tires. And like we were talking about with JP Alfonso, you're absolutely right. And taking the tires early has played a huge advantage to him because his pace is better than every other car on track. And as we discussed earlier, with the pitting in such a way that you avoid traffic, he is all alone by himself. So he is basically just qualifying out there. And taking the tires early, just like it is late, is a double-edged sword because he's getting his advantage now, and he's got to build up as much of that advantage as he can because when everybody else comes for tires, they will have a superior pace, or at least on paper, will have a superior pace, and so they'll start to eat away in that advantage. So JP Alfonso, like Philip Forrester here, has really got to just bank as much time as he can, and clean air, no traffic, and no pressure behind is the key to get that done.
I will hand it to Forrester here a little bit, though. We mentioned the earlier troubles he had in this race, and then you also just brought up the fact that he took tires on his first stop. Already worked his way up back into the 7th position, where he's fallen as low as, I believe, 15th, and that was just for the slightest mistake. Correction, that was 14th position that he fell down to. He was in the 2nd position for most of this race, but it was the simplest of mistakes there, just dipping those 2 tires off the edge that sent the 22 Porsche around. And right now, trying to battle back, and you mentioned it, took tires, so he's banking his advantage right now. He's had the pace all night long. Fresh tires are worn tires. So I think if he can get some time back, we mentioned that time delta about 23 seconds. I still think a podium position isn't outside of the crazy realm of possibility for Forrester, but he definitely has his work cut out for some of that.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think Alfonso is going to cycle through in a comfortable 2nd place after the 2nd pit stop, comfortable with an asterisk next to it because cars behind him will have fresher rubber and be hunting him down. Jose Puig also in that same boat. He's about 7 seconds behind Alfonso. And then you start to work back from Jose to Forrester and these other guys that have stopped. If their need for less time on pit lane the next time, you're going to see a lot of these guys like Sorensen, Cantera, Salazar, Puig, Forrester, they're going to start overlapping, and we're going to have a nice mix of fresh tires, old tires for this final stint of the race. So that's something I'm excited for because that's going to make the race really, really interesting going to the checker.
Oh yeah, that's always fun to see the differences in tire wear, no matter what racing discipline you're in. Maybe not so much in the dirt racing side, but NASCAR, oval racing, GT3 racing, even down the touring car racing. We not only talk about the strategy, but really just the tight racing when 2 cars get next to each other. Very difficult to pass. A lot of air taken off the front of these cars by dirty air, so it's so hard and gives you a whole basically more respect for these vehicles as they make as much downforce as they do. But that's one of the things that you have to manage here as one of these GT3 drivers here on the Ignite GT3 series presented by JP Alfonso Studios. You really got to manage your car. You got to manage coming in the dirty air, and the drivers that can do that the best and stay out of trouble are going to be the drivers here towards the front of the pack, just under halfway through this race. You're right on board with your leader right now, and we do have maybe a little bit of an incident here. We'll see what happened, or possibly just going back to live action here. But Giancarlo Schallmann doing still just an excellent job from the drop of the green flag. Really, there's no other way to put it, Trevor. He's just kind of dominated so far and is continuing to do so here with 27 minutes left in this race.
Absolutely. I mean, he's had the best laps. He's had the best pace. No mistakes. He's just driven away from anybody, so he's had no pressure to contend with, no traffic. Just really great drive, textbook. And again, with this being, again, all intents and purposes, this is only a slightly better circuit to pass on than Monaco. It's a street circuit. Getting that pole position was half the battle here for him, and the other half is just not making a mistake, and he's done that to a T so far this race. But as I say at the racetrack in real life, there's still plenty of time to screw it up.
No, really, and that's the we mentioned so far, just not making mistakes. And Uh, it only takes one. You drop the tire and you run your front end into a fence there. Or you get into a battle like you see here between Barry and the driver he's chasing down right now, and you overdrive the corner just a little bit. These walls are so close, really easy to cause engine damage to your car, steering damage, even no fast repairs here in this series. Just the 2 pit stops that you're required to do. This is Divinanzo in the Navy car, and then Barry here trying to chase him down right now. And we'll go back through the turns 13 and 14 section here, coming through the start finish line. Barry doesn't have enough of a run to poke to the inside. Excuse me, this is actually the hairpin corner, so they'll come back down this section of the track and then back to the start finish line. And again, we've mentioned racing action all over this racing surface. Ironically enough, with the exception of the battle for our lead, Trevor.
Yeah, that's it. And these little battles all throughout the field have kept things interesting. And as you said, John Barry here is really trying to find a way around Tyler DiVincenzo. But thing with that long straightaway is the Porsche is great just about everywhere else, but once that straightaway hits, it's 2 cylinders and 2 turbos short to that Ferrari, and you really see the power and the strength of the Ferrari come out there. And Barry's going to have to work the rest of the lap to try to get himself even remotely close, only to watch that Ferrari get smaller next time they hit the straightaway. Unless he gets a run, stuffs it down the inside there on the hairpin. That'll be his really only opportunity here. As you see, the gap really closes up nicely through the corners for the Porsche, and he's probably not close enough unless he takes these next corners perfectly to do anything at the hairpin. So he might begin to find himself in a very frustrating position lap after lap, just staring at the back end of that Ferrari.
Well, and containing that frustration is also one of the challenges here of GT3 racing, as this battle for the 11th position continues here for another lap, as you mentioned, Trevor. Barry going to look to the inside here, possibly thinks better of it. I don't really think any driver there decided really fully what they wanted to do in that situation. And I will say Barry put Divinanzo there in a situation where he had to make a decision. He wasn't going to ruin his race over one position here, and thought better of it, but was able to get the better drive off of the hairpin that time, as Barry really overdriving the corner. And we've kind of seen that with a few drivers. Arvin Sendangi as well tried to make a kind of a dime bomb pass on that hairpin. I think what a lot of drivers don't realize, Trevor, is that's a tightening radius hairpin as you come out of it. You can't be as aggressive as, say, you would just a straight 180.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But also, too, if you can get side by side with the guy there on entry, you don't have a lot of space to track out, and it's their responsibility to give you room. So start running out of road very quickly as well. So it's a place where that inside dive bomb can work. And I think Barry wasn't trying to make a pass there. I think he was just trying to learn something and maybe plant the wrong kind of seed in Tyler DiVincenzo's head. These next couple laps, he might just make a mistake and leave the door open, as we see John Barry is much closer than he was before the previous laps.
On a couple turns ago.
Yeah, side by side here, a little too wide. I think if I were Barry, I would have followed suit, been right on his bumper, and made the pass to the hairpin. That area of the track is not one of our hot passing zones, and there's good reason for it. You just can't do it. It's not a real conducive place. So now the frustration's really going to settle in for Barry, because now he's got to take another lap or two to get himself back.
Go back to the front of our pack here. This is a battle for second position. You mentioned him all night long, Trevor. Kerry Cantera in the 333 now finds himself looking for third position. He's battling here with Sorensen, actually finds himself in the third position. Sorensen, your second place driver right now behind Schielman, trying to really, I don't think trying to chase down the leader at this point. I think Sorensen's playing defense mode here with Cantera. Cantera continuing to march his way through the field. Just about 20 minutes left in this race with still one pit stop to go. A variety of strategies throughout the field. Some drivers taking tires on their first stop, some drivers not taking tires. So we still have one more pit stop here from the virtual circuit Gilles-Villeneuve, and that's going to really throw a wrench in things right now. But Really, nobody worrying about that right now, less than Giancarlo uh, Shilden, your leader right now. Just an absolutely dominant race from start to finish. I know we kind of said it so many times before, and we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point, Trevor. But it is really impressive how he's able to come in here, first race this season, I believe, for him, and just dominate like he has.
It's clear he's got quite a lot of talent and a lot of time at this track, and it's really got that Porsche dialed in. He's making it look entirely too easy out there, but that seems to be the trend here, you know. And it's been Juan Salazar in races past that have been in Schliemann's position, and you know we've seen one car make little to no mistakes over the course of a race and end up light years in front of everybody else. The real action and the excitement has been, you know, second and back, and we've seen that here with little packs, and it's no different here with Sorensen and Cantera, because if you look ahead of Sorensen here, they've got two lapped cars they're coming up on, and that could throw a wrench in Sorensen's bid to keep second place.
We've seen that happen so many times this season as well, Trevor, where lap traffic is really kind of forced a decision on one driver or the other. Not only can you lose the position, but it even sometimes will cause accidents. So if you're a driver here like Sorensen, especially if you're on the defensive with the driver behind you, such as or as talented as Cantera is, I mean, those lap cars can be almost as terrifying as the car behind you in the mirror, because you know that, you know, for the most part, they're going to stay out of your way. But at the same time, it's a battle you wish you didn't have to have as they come back down the long straightaway here, and they'll cross the start finish line again. Just under 20 minutes left in our race now, so we should start to see here this second round of green flag. Well, obviously local yellows here on a road course, so they're all going to be green flag pit stops. But our second round of pit stops, and again, your leader Schillman still has not taken tires yet, so this last stop for him will be a tire stop. But we don't think it's enough to give away the race lead to Sorensen. But definitely is going to make it much, much closer. Sorensen, though, still has his battle, or I'm sorry, has his hands full with this battle between him and Cantera.
I think if I were Sorensen there, seeing the traffic coming up, I would have ducked into the pit lane and got my final stop out of the way, just to keep myself out of this battle, because he's going to find shortly that he's not going to be able to go as fast as he wants to, and it is elevated risk to have a slower lap down car in front of you, especially with a car for position for second place, 5 car lengths behind you. As you know, every millisecond that car in front slows you down is that much advantage you're giving away to the car behind. As we see, wasn't quite on the apex there, wasn't where he wanted to be, and Cantera had a clean route through. That gap is now closing as we see Sorensen look side by side. He's going to look on the outside. Looks like he's going to give it up, and that's not good news for Cantera, because now they've got to slow themselves down for the slow car in front of them. That's something we have to contend with heavily in multi-class racing, especially IMSA WeatherTech series. You know, in years past, and not too distant past, 5 different classes of cars, and whether you're in a GT3 car, which is the slowest class car, or Daytona prototype, the fastest at the time, you were dealing with all sorts of different cars, and you had to understand what driver was in the car to understand their pace and their skill level and how much you could push them, how much you could trust them going side by side. And see our first round of pit stops here. We've got Forrester in.
And I really like this play by Forrester as you see Daniel Ott on the pit road as well. Forrester came in, got tires early. Of course, the driver that had earlier issues, that self-spin there that put him all the way back to 14th position at one point. So you know this second stop is going to be for fuel only. He's probably going to be able to leapfrog some of those drivers that that stayed out and did not take tires that first time around. So able to salvage all the positions he can right now. You see he drops to 9th place because of the 2 drivers passing him. Will probably drop to 10th place right now as well, but he'll get those spots back as soon as these drivers come to the pit road on their own time.
Yeah, I think that's a good move there, and you know JP Alfonso's doing exactly what he needs to do to maximize that. Only 12 seconds behind Sorensen. He has the luxury of not having to wait for tire change there, so he should end up in second place here with something like a 10-second lead over the Sorensen-Cantera duo. Jose Puig is going to end up mixed in there, and Forrester was one that we said that was going to start really amalgamating with those cars like Sorensen, Cantera, and Ott that haven't taken tires on that first stop.
Yeah, and I really think if it wasn't for the earlier mistake by Forrester, he'd find himself much farther along than the 8th position right now. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, and you still got to find a way to manage your race. Looking through the field here right now, I do not believe we have any retirements from this race. And as of now, let me see, I'm trying to see here. I believe there's 3 cars, 1 lap down. Maybe correct me on that one, Joey, if you have a better idea on that. But other than that, every single one of these drivers, with a, I will say, long shot odds to win, but it's not out of the cards yet. We've seen thing happen, but a lot of effort's going to be have to put in if you're one of these drivers that finds himself from about 4th position on back.
That's right, and yep, looks like we have our leader hitting pit lane now. So of the front runners, that leaves just Sorensen, Alfonso, Puig, and Arvin Sadeghi have yet to make their second mandatory stop. We won't see a change for the lead here, I don't believe, even temporarily. This will be a bit lengthier stop for our leader as he has to take the mandatory set of tires, as does Sorensen as he hits pit lane now.
Yeah, and remember, there's still mistakes to be made. And if you those mistakes, especially on pit road, you get a black flag for possibly speeding on a pit road entrance or exit here, or even miss your pit stall by a few inches, have to back up. That could be very detrimental to your race as well. So you see JP Alfonso here now coming into pit road for his final pit stop. This is going to be, I believe, a fuel-only stop for him as he's already taken his tires on his earlier stop. So one of those drivers on a little bit of an alternate strategy. But with 14 minutes left in this race, you're starting to see these strategies play out, Trevor.
Absolutely, and Alfonso should be underway here as we see Sorensen underway from his tire change. Alfonso's going to pick up that spot. Kerry Cantera is crossing start-finish now, so we'll see how they shake out, but looks like Alfonso's going to have that nice cushy lead I predicted. The exits pit lane through and curves.
Just over 13 minutes left now for JP Alfonso. He's going to be battling here with Sorensen for about second position, 6 seconds apart right now, but I believe that gap will be closer after all these pit stops here cycle out. I believe that your leader is still going to be Schildman at this time, just doing everything that he can, even with the pit stops, even with how much time he had to take for time. He's worked himself out to that much of an advantage where it just doesn't matter. And JP Alfonso, the rest of the drivers behind him, still having to take one more stop, was able to just get out to that much of a gap, and now just has to hang on here for the final 12 minutes and 45 seconds from the virtual circuit, Gilles-Villeneuve, and he will be a winner here at the Ignite GT3 Racing League presented by JP Alfonso Studios. And speaking of drivers, here's Kerry Cantera. You've talked about him all night long, sitting there in the 7th position right now. And really, 7th position, still a solid race for Kerry. I'm sure he wants more than that, and he has them at sights right now, but not a bad run from Triple 3 Camp.
Absolutely, and the name of the game for Cantera here is just to burn those tires to the ground. They've only got to last about 8 more laps, so they need to extract every bit of performance out of them and get as much time back as they can. Really solid first time lap there at 35 flat. So some really decent times here. That was half second quicker than Forrester last lap. Got to claw their way up. I think that Cantera, if they make no mistakes, as it looks like they might have.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you said make no mistakes. They're coming around the curves, just overcooked it a little bit there on turn 1. You see the tire marks. Was able to skid into the wall there, but unfortunately, that's definitely going to be front end damage for the 333 Lamborghini. Hopefully not engine damage, but you got to imagine some kind of steering damage there for the triple three.
For sure, there's not a lot of meat between the bumper and the firewall in those Lamborghinis, and especially too the way the nose is shaped and the way the hood is used for radiator ventilation and more downforce have a huge effect on the front end of that car, even if there isn't steering damage. That's a shame because I really foresaw a nice battle between Terra, Forrester, Salazar, and Puig there for the first runner-up position, P4. I think we were in for it, but I think if we look back here to Jose and Juan Salazar, they are nose to tail.
Yeah, nose to tail indeed. They just crossed the start-finish line. Now heading into the Senna curves here as well. Puig, a little bit of a, I wouldn't say off night for him. I mean, still up there. This is a battle for the fourth position. But Puig, of course, used to racing for race wins. And right now just kind of holding off that driver. That's Juan Salazar right now in the machine. Salazar's had a few mistakes in this race as well. So the fact that he's able to catch up to Puig and now putting him under pressure is quite impressive as well as we get to the final 10 minutes of our race here. This is a battle for your fourth position. Again, the leader of this race, still Shillman, and he's been the leader since the drop of the green flag right now. Royce Ebro is the only driver that have taken it to the garage so far, even with some of the incidents that we've seen from the rest of these drivers. They've decided to stay on the racetrack. Alfonso, Sorensen, Puig, and Salazar, who you're right on board with right now, round out your top five. But Salazar still looking for that fourth position from Puig.
Absolutely, and that's definitely going to be one to watch, and we'll keep our eyes on it as long as we can, as long as these guys put a show on for us. But one thing I will say is Sorensen, as we said before, has a slight pace advantage over Alfonso for P2. With about 6 laps to go, it's right on target to just catch Alfonso by the start-finish line. So pressure mounting on Alfonso to hold P2, and we'll click over there as that story develops here. But we've got too good of a show here from Jose and Juan Salazar. We just can't pull our eyes away.
The sun's starting to set here over the man-made circuit. Gilles-Villeneuve finds itself on as you can start to see the headlights really starting to make a difference here, and that's probably what Juan Salazar is really hoping that affects Puig just a little bit more and maybe gives a little bit of visibility here in the rear view mirror of Puig as he continues to hold on to this position. And you kind of mentioned earlier in this race, Trevor, experimenting with passes, with dives to the inside or outside of corners and stuff as well. You can very much intimidate another driver in front of you, even in road racing here. We know that Dale Earnhardt obviously was known for his tactics of intimidating drivers. But even here in the sports car world, just poking your mirror out like you see right now, although this might be an attempt for the pass, driving it in really hard there is Salazar. I don't know if he's going to be able to hang on. It looks like it is. I think Puig here going to bide his time and wait for an opportunity to pass later in this race.
Possibly. I mean, that pass there, I think, caught Jose out so bad that it really choked down his minimum speed through the hairpin there and surprised him. Although we see here, side by side, exiting the Wall of Champions, Jose says, "Not today." And that, my position, good sir. You'll have to try again tomorrow. So, like I said, these guys are fierce competitors. They've been the class of the field, race after race after race. Salazar with multiple wins in the series, including last weekend at Sebring. So really interesting here. I think we're getting a redo of the battle we should have seen at Sebring had Jose not had his issues late in the race.
Yeah, right now I believe that was just a little bit of a too aggressive into the hairpin, and then 13 and 14 coming back to the start finish line for these. I'm sorry, for the driver trailing Puig right now. You kind of saw there going through the couple of S's there. Really drove in aggressively there by Salazar, and Puig just was more patient, was able to kind of do the over-under and a crossover a few times to the corners, and finds himself easily back with the fourth position.
Absolutely, but Salazar is going to say, I've done that once, I can do it again. And he also knows that move in the final complex of corners worked for Jose on him last time, and it might just work for him in the future. So uh, definitely anybody's game, and both of these guys are fiercely fast and fiercely competitive. So I think any passing zone opportunity is going to be some fireworks between these two.
Well, and we kind of mentioned that as well. We were talking about before this battle developed as the little bit of gamesmanship that goes back and forth. And I will say one more thing that Salazar knows now is he knows that move works to an extent. You know, he didn't keep the lead for very long there, but maybe a last lap dive bomb trying to get one more position here before the drop of the checkered flag. I could legitimately see a move like that working, but obviously it's going to be a risky one here as Salazar continues to chase down Puig with just over 5 minutes left in our race here from the virtual circuit Gilles-Villeneuve here north of the border in Montreal, Canada. And oh, a little bit of a mistake for Puig, and Salazar is going to get into it.
Oh
That's not
no.
what we were expecting at all. Puig is going to lose more positions here. He's at least going to fall back to 5th. He's now in the 6th position now, you see on your screen. And we'll see what happened here. Maybe a little bit of the lights getting too bright there in the mirror.
You know, we've seen it earlier. Just a little too much brake, a little too much trail there, and it's not slowing down as well as he expected it to, and just kind of caught him out. I think really unfortunate, but it's really helped our benefactor Philip Forrester. That's helped him out and put him now on the bumper of Juan Salazar.
Yeah, and you see another car able to get by there as well. Wondering if there's any damage to the one of Juan Salazar as he comes by this time. We'll take a look. Doesn't really appear to be too much damage there, but you kind of mentioned it opens the door for Sorensen now to give chase there. You see how close the gap is between them as well. Now coming to 4 minutes left in this race. So these two are going to be duking it out, of course, for the last couple of positions here. As we get down to the crunch time with this race, 2, maybe possibly 3 laps remaining, minute 35 lap times. I would say probably closer to 3. What do you think, Trevor?
We should be a little under 3 here, maybe 2.6 laps if you want to get specific there on the 0 clock. But yeah, it looks like we're gonna have to keep our eyes on the Salazar Forrester battle. Salazar has some damage that can really compromise his pace and give Forrester a bit of an advantage. Of course, though, Forrester's tires are significantly older than Salazar's. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Really big bummer for Jose, man. He's had really good races with just one mistake these last 2 weeks, and it looks like here the pace advantage of Sorensen's new tires on JP Alfonso has now evened out, and Alfonso's actually turning laps quicker than Sorensen on older tires now. So that gap is now opening up to 7.8 seconds. So I don't think Sorensen's much of a threat for Alfonso. Really nice work by Alfonso to make that early tire stop fulfill strategy work. I don't think anybody had anything for our leader, which we've gone silent on for a moment, but we haven't forgotten him. Giancarlo Schliemann really putting on a clinic out there, 27 seconds ahead of Alfonso at the moment. But the Salazar Forrester battle's the one to watch here in the closing stages of the race, as they are coming up on a lapped car of Connor Webb as they go through the Senna S's now.
Through the Senna S's, they'll go this battle for 4th position. Now Forrester will go on board with him in the 5th spot, trying to chase down Salazar. Only 5/10 of a second separate these two drivers, just under a half a second now. And you kind of mentioned it, that lap traffic is going to become a factor here probably before this race is over. So we'll see what it's able to do here from Forrester. All over the back bumper of Salazar right now. And we saw how aggressive Salazar was with Puig early. You can't make any mistakes here, especially with 2 minutes left in the race. But you really got to go now, if anything. You'll see this lap car now will move to the side here. Good job by Webb to let this battle rage through and not affect it too terribly too much. Forrester continuing to chase Salazar down here through the hair.
Yeah, and let's keep an eye on it because Salazar, as he tags the wall there on exit, that's really going to open the door for Forrester. Forrester right on the bumper with a run. Might be a sitting duck here in the final complex of corners, the Wall of Champions. Um, yeah, that's before the wall contact. Salazar's car did not look happy, so Forrester will be licking his lips and smelling blood in the water here as they go into the final complex of corners. Oh, as Forrester goes Aussie V8 supercars, two wheels in the air, hopping the curb, finds himself scraping the wall on exit. So, corners in a row, we've had two wall scrapes by these guys. They're really giving it their all here as we come to the last couple of laps.
Yeah, matching wall tags there for Salazar and Forrester, just on different. Well, I wouldn't say matching wall tags because one was on the left side of the car, one was on the other. So I will say complementary wall tags by our two drivers here battling for the fourth position. 30 seconds left in this race. So I would assume next time that Shulman comes to the the flag stand, he will be getting the white flag here. So 60 minutes of racing action sees Shulman, Alfonso, Sorensen, Salazar, and Forrester, your top five here. This battle. Forrester still trying to chase down fourth position here. I don't think he's going to have quite enough for it right now, as we might possibly be coming to the checkered flag here for these drivers. It looks like Giancarlo Schalman will be your winner here from the circuit. Gilles-Villeneuve, just an absolute drive from start to finish. A complete domination of this race. Started on pole, had the fastest time in practice, carries it over to the race session, and he will be your winner here, barring any mistakes from the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve. So just an absolutely dominant drive for him, and kind of heartbreaking for JP Alfonso there, Trevor. Such a good run from him. Really played the pit strategy well. I think if John Carlo's not here, he wins the race, obviously. But kind of heartbreaking from him. He's been looking for wins so far this season. Not able to break through here, where he probably had his best run of the night, as we see Cantera and Ott now battling here for eighth position, coming back to the checkered flag. Final corner here. Cantera is going to hang on for eighth place. Ott will come home in ninth position. But I kind of mentioned that there, Trevor. Kind of heartbreaking there for JP Alfonso.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was Giancarlo made it very clear that he was going to be the car to beat, and he did not make a single mistake, and just incredible pace, and never really pressured. So, hats off to Alfonso. He made a really great call in the strategy, made it all work. Found himself early down fourth, fifth place, got himself in a good position, got back on the horse. And then didn't put a wheel wrong the remainder of the race. And, I know JP does not like this track. So uh, I think this is as good as a win for him to come to a place like this where he just doesn't jive with it, and a good second place, even after the mistakes kind of took him out of contention at Sebring. I think it's a really, really nice job by Alfonso to kind of uh, be in the shadows there until the final stop, and then find himself 7-10 seconds ahead of P3 and easy cruising.
Yeah, easy cruising for Alfonso. Of course, Shillman, you're going to be your winner this evening from the Virtual at Circuit. Gil de Villeneuve, or Gilles Villeneuve, excuse me. Sorry, that was a tongue twister there. I've only said it 14 times here tonight, but we'll take a look at your final grid results here in just a second. Got a few drivers just coming across the line now, so we'll take a look at your results when we have them right now. John Carlos from the virtual circuit, Gilles Villeneuve, JP Alfonso second, Nick Sorensen in third, Juan Salazar in fourth, and Philip Forster in fifth. We'll have interviews with those top five drivers if we're able to get a chat with them. Jose Pooch sixth, Stephen Knight seventh, Kerry Cantera eighth, Daniel Ott ninth, and Kyle Edgar will round out your top 10. John Barry from there, Arvin Sandangi, Kevin Ayers, Connor Webb, Justin Knapp, Tyler DiVinanzo, William Keyser, Mark Royce, Alan Bros, and Don York will round out your 20 car field here this evening from the Ignite Racing League GT3 Series presented by the JP Alfonso Studios. And of course, they're a tattoo studio over in Norcross, Georgia. You can go and check out www jpalfonsostudios.com. Yeah, you can see their recent work and then book your own appointment there as well if that's what you want to do. So we'll go ahead, and it looks like we don't have our race winner here this evening quite yet. So we're going to go ahead and start with your fifth place finisher. That's going to be Philip Forrester. And Philip, kind of an up and down race for you. Ran into some early trouble. We're able to round back for fifth position. How'd the race feel from your point of view?
I didn't like it. I'm so upset with myself. I always have problems with this track, but this is just the topping on the cake right here. But overall, it was a good race. Everybody raced really good. The setup was good. The track was great. It was just all me.
Well, I know it's a little bit disappointing here right now. So far, position still not terrible for you. What are you looking forward to in the next round, and how do you think you're going to do there?
Uh, I think I'm gonna be decent there. Probably top 5 again. Just depends on how this next update is and everything. But we could see ourselves in the top 5 100%. I'm shooting for second, first place, but top 5 is where I want to be next week.
Well, that's Philip Forrester, your fifth place finisher here this evening. Thank that helps you out with the racing action.
Yeah. The racing action's really good here, and all around the whole field is really, really good at being aware of what's around them and everything, and tight racing. I really like this. And good job on the broadcasting as well. I rewatched the whole thing, and y'all do a tremendous job.
Well, we appreciate it, and good job to you out on the track there, Philip. Good enough for fifth position for Philip Forrester, and we're now going to be standing by with our fourth place finisher here this evening from the virtual circuit, Gilles-Villeneuve, and that's going to be Juan Salazar, and Juan standing by with Trevor now.
Hey Juan, man, good run there. A little more eventful than the last couple of races here at the JP Alfonso Studios GT3 series. Walk us through those that battle with Jose just before it ended in tears for Jose.
That was a shame. I mean, to be honest with you, when I saw Jose spin in front of me, I just didn't know what to do. You know, I had nowhere to go, so I hit him. It's a bummer.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it goes in tight street circuits like this one. Is in front of you makes a mistake, you've got nowhere to go, and it was heartbreaking for us in the booth because we had a really good fight on our hands. I felt like that was the battle that was meant to be that we never got at Sebring last week between you and Jose. Obviously not for the position that you guys would want, but speak to us here. Do you think you had the pace if everything went perfect for our winner Giancarlo Schleiman?
No, Giancarlo was about a half second faster than me, at least. You know, I spun because I was trying to keep up with him. I overdrove the car, and ended up turned around. So no, he had it 100% of the time, the whole time this race. He needed to make a huge mistake for anybody to catch up to him.
Yeah, copy that. And he made none of those all night, which is really, really great to watch for him. Really nice, clean run. Is this a track that you like?
No.
Because that seems to be the overwhelming consensus. I know JP doesn't like it. We just heard from Philip Forrester a minute ago. He doesn't like it. It's one of those you either love it or you hate it, and it's tough. It's tough, and it lives up to its namesake, Gilles-Villeneuve, quite well. Interesting place.
Too many walls. Just too many walls, man. You know, there's
Yeah,
walls
yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, well, those are street circuits for you, man. Go to Belle Isle or Monaco, and it's concrete and nothing else. So, as you said, it was great to see you survive your spin. Not too much damage, if anything at all. But a number of your competitors weren't so lucky today. But really nice run. I mean, anytime you can get a really respectable finishing position, top 4, top 5, at a circuit you absolutely hate, that's a good day. Ultimately, you survived, and it was a nice run, and I think you still got the points lead, man.
Well, listen, after I spun, I would have been happy with a top 10. That was I knew I was in trouble. To get a fourth definitely exceeded my expectations after that third lap. I think it was where I spun. So yeah, I'm happy.
Absolutely, man. Well, good drive. We'll see you next week, and of course, we'll look forward to having the position number match your car number next week.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
And it looks like we have our third place finisher, Nick. Doesn't put a wheel wrong, Sorensen, as he's here with Ian now.
Nick, great run from you there. Ended up in third position. From your point of view, well, actually, first, let me start with this. We've asked everybody else so far. What are your thoughts on this track in general?
Yeah, it's good. I like it. I don't hate it like a lot of people do. It's not my favorite, but no, it's a good track. I like it.
Oh, okay, so
Tough.
we've got
You got to be precise and in order to go fast.
so that's one for the like column. So I think that's one for the like column. I think we have one meh and then one hating it.
Right.
So an equal spread so far. But talk about your race a little bit, man. How did it there and how yourself home
Yeah,
in third position?
I was cruising there in second place, just keeping. Oh, I forget who was that behind me, keeping them away. And then after the second pit stop, uh, JP Alfonso jumped in front of me. I didn't know how he did that, so he must have really been saving tires and fuel. But so I was trying to catch him, and it got dark. Once the sun went down, it really started giving me problems. I wasn't able to see my entry points to my turns as well, especially under the bridge and then the Wall of Champions there. So I was having a hard time trying to keep up with him, and he pulled away for second place, and I had to do all I could to just hold on to third.
I will say the transition from day to night kind of caught me off guard as well, but good enough here for you for third position, Nick, in this race. Anybody you want to shout out who helps you get it done?
No, I just like to thank all the guys at Ignite Racing League, putting on a good league. One of the newer guys here and having fun so far.
And that was Nick Sorensen, your third place finisher here this evening from the circuit, Gilles-Villeneuve. And we're catching up now with JP Alfonso. He's your second place finisher here this evening. He's standing by with Trevor.
JP, I think you've got the undisputed strategy call of the race. Talk us through that decision to go off book and be the only guy in the top 4 to do your tires early.
Well, I had a super awesome guy that pretty much gave me a great advice at the beginning of the race. I'm not gonna mention names, but but yeah, we talk about it. We discuss the possibilities of the strategies, and he really guided me through it. And that's it. We pretty much try to stick to it, and hopefully that nothing goes wrong, and definitely make sure that I don't hit anything along the way, and everything came out the way that I was expecting.
So I want to talk to you about what you just mentioned, the not hitting anything and not making any mistakes. And before I do that, we're taking a poll of the top 5. Do you or do you not like this track?
Uh, well, if I were to spend more time here, I can see be a very fun track. It's just like when you're not familiar with it and you don't trust, the card and a couple of turns that this track has, it's very like hard to get into the rhythm. You know, I found myself finding it a very comfortable pace where I wasn't going too slow, but and I was keeping it safe at the same time. Trying to find that balance was the main focus here. Because I mean, to me, I knew that in practice and even in qualifying, it was impossible for me to keep up a pace, especially like the pole position pace, and without hitting anything. So I had to make the choice to adjust to the stay on track game, and hopefully that will pay off at the end of the race.
Absolutely, and that's usually the best decision to make, especially when you've got such a pace deficit to Schliemann there. I mean, Giancarlo came in and made it very clear he was going to be the fastest guy. So, there are days where, you can't win the race, even though you're used to being up front. You take what the racing gods give you, and second place was it today. So I mentioned that because only you and Nick Sorensen are the only two drivers in the entire field that have an incident count of 0. So two of you literally didn't put a single wheel wrong entire night. So that was really good to see, and that's got to make you feel good after just the small incident at Sebring that kind of took you out of contention last week.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. In practice, the message was very clear. Yeah, Giancarlo was here to dominate, and unless he will made a mistake or something like that, I don't see anything changing. So I accepted it. I say you can have it. Actually, we were talking to him, behind the stage and stuff, and he was letting us know that this is one of his favorite tracks. He have done many, many, many laps here, so he deserve it. So he's put out the work. He really, nailed it to the T, and he deserved the win. So I'm actually surprised that I finished in the position that I did. So I have no complaints.
Man, you did again a really nice job executing exactly what you needed to do, and as you said, you had a game plan before the race. You stuck to it, and it paid off. Congrats on this second place, man. It's gotta feel good, and you've got one more step to go to get that first win.
Definitely. Every track, I'm getting closer and closer. So hopefully, I can maintain this, mistake free on the next race coming up, and hopefully, I get to be on the podium in one of those.
That's it, man. Well, just keep driving like you did today, and you'll be there.
I really appreciate it. Thank you to you guys for all the work that you guys do, and you guys have a great night.
Sarah, you as well. And we have last but not least Arlo Schliemann, as he is here now with Ian to talk us through that very dominant win.
Yeah, Giancarlo, we talked to some of your fellow competitors here, and they kind of mentioned that this might be one of your favorite tracks, and that definitely showed on the racetrack. I mean, just tell us about a little bit of your preparation here and how you're able to be so dominant here this evening.
They are absolutely right. This is one of my favorite tracks. I think it might just be the I don't know, the racing close to the walls, kind of the things that keep you on edge and very honest with how you drive and how far you're willing to push yourself in the car. But yeah, I've turned a lot of laps here, so it was pretty fortuitous track selection for my first week in the league.
Well, and it seemed from at least our point of view that it was simple for you all night long, just kind of got up front from your pole position and then stayed there. Was there any moment in this race where you were the slightest bit worried, or was this just business as usual for you?
I think definitely the start was the biggest moment of concern, just because this is probably one of the more difficult tracks to pass at that I've ever raced on. So especially that turn 1 into turn 2 first lap was by far the most important two corners of the race. And once I was able to keep in front at that point, it was mostly just about settling into a rhythm that I could maintain for the whole race, keep a very consistent pace, and just see it through to the end.
Well, a consistent pace is a little bit of an understatement. A dominant win here for you tonight. Is there anybody you want to shout out who helped you got it done out there on the racetrack?
Yeah, I'd love to shout out Nick, who was the one that introduced me to this league and to racing with these guys. He also got, I believe, a P3, so huge props to him. But yeah, overall, a lot of fun, and looking forward to future races.
Oh, Giancarlo Schleman, 1-for-1 in racing action here on the Ignite 3 Racing League, and I'm sure we'll see much more of them here as the weeks go on. Just want to take out a second here to shout out our sponsor, Hot Rod Setups, and we also have the obviously JP Alfonso Studios in Norcross, Georgia. Check out jpalfonsostudios.com and get yourself some of their recent work and booking information for yourself as well. Also, want to shout out Tam Liveries, doing a lot of liveries you see out here in the Ignite GT3 Racing League. On behalf of myself in the booth. We've got Trevor McClure, Eddie Smith running the buttons here with Dougie Beer providing the cameras for us here this evening. Coming up here on Maconi Entertainment on the 8th, we do have the Ignite Racing Lead Hot Rod Cup Series from Watkins Glen, so you can check that out here on the 8th. And then Fast Fridays on the Friday, the 12-9. And then next week, of course, we go to Long Beach here in the GT3 Series. That will be on the 12th as well. But again, on behalf of myself, Trevor McClure, Eddie Smith, Dougie Beard, Jeff Maconi, everybody here on Entertainment, we like to thank you for tuning in to tonight's presentation of the Ignite GT3 League and hope you'll join us in 1 week's time as we go racing from the virtual Long Beach.